Hey guys, today I am talking with Steve Holliner, aka Coach Fury. Coach Fury is the founder and creator of Speakeasy of Strength, a training facility in Brooklyn, New York, and he is also the creator of the Die Mighty training method. He is a wealth of knowledge and one of the kindest, most gentlest trainers and all around good people that I know. He's also my buddy. Anyway, here are two friends geeking out over Marvel, training, and all things awesome. Pull up a chair and buckle up. It's the Original Strength BodCast.
Is it really the first time I'm on the podcast? I'm going to be we're just talking about Marvel movies.
Well, no, so yes, we can. Yes. But I thought we could also talk about other stuff too.
All
Let's
right,
see what happens.
I'm yours. Let's do this thing.
All right, let's do it. So, okay. So a lot of questions, but the first question is what is Speakeasy Strength?
Speakeasy of Strength is a couple of things. The original name came from when I left Mark Fisher Fitness. I had this big goal of doing a bunch of online coaching and teaching workshops and certifications and using that as my main source of income. And then I realized that at a certain level, I really hated online coaching, and the one-to-one style, not the per program thing. And at the time, this is going back now 5 years or so, everyone was just sort of starting to do online, and I had been doing it as a component of my business, but not a lot. And people, I think it's very misleading how many clients people say they have online, a lot of coaches, and the freedom and lack of work. But when you're an online coach and you end up with 10, 15, 20 members, you might as well be running a brick and mortar. You're not spending as much time with the person, but you're communicating a bit more throughout the week, spread out, as opposed to condensed within the hour or so. And I just found great, now I'm on my computer again. It's just like being back in production. So long story short, I tried to rebuild a program at another gym where I actually started working out on my fitness adventure, and started building up Coach Fury's Kettlebell Club, which we ended up calling Mighty Strong. And then that place folded rather quickly. They had been around. It was very heartbreaking. They were a staple of Park Slope, Brooklyn, mom and pop business. A couple of bigger franchises. This is the rumor mill, folks, so don't confirm me. A couple of bigger franchises, Blink, came into town, and basically I started, I think, calling on the Department of Buildings to get them fined. I might be overstepping and saying all that, but they had to close. And after trying to find a spot to bring it to, Kim, my wife, was like, why don't you just do it in the apartment? So we'd always had a personal training room in our apartment. And basically I would slide the dining room table out of the way, put out a bunch of yoga mats. I already had all the gear, and we would do small group training in our living room, which we did for about 2 years. And that's kind of where my original name was Fury Industries, but that's where the name Speakeasy of Strength came from, because you really had to know somebody to get in. I would post about it, and we had a Yelp page, but from the street, you would just see this building on what looks like a relatively sketchy / business commuter corner. We're right at the edge of a highway, an entrance to the Brooklyn Queens Expressway. And that's where I wanted to change the name to. So when we then moved, eventually finding the space that I'm in right now, the original name Fury Industries was the legal entity name. This all happened so fast, as you and Danny know more than most. I didn't even realize, I didn't even have the time to kind of even form the DBA for Speakeasy of Strength. But yeah, we opened in 2019 officially, and then 9 months later hit the first shutdown. And that's where the name comes from. It's also what I like about it. It's how we carry ourselves. I like to have fun and help people through strength, as opposed to bragging or trying to be elite through strength. So we speak easy. It's kind of like, check out what I can do, but don't be a jerk about it.
So training in your apartment or training others in your apartment, was that legal? And is that why it's also Speakeasy Street?
No comment. I honestly don't know. I mean, we had insurance. It probably broke, in full transparency, it probably broke lease to some degrees, but I had liability insurance and people were signing waivers. So I don't know. Our building is definitely was a former factory. So at some point it was definitely sturdy enough to support it all. But no one complained. We're very lucky. We live on the second floor, and there's a garage below us that works on cars. So noise was never an issue. But it had its limitations. So yeah, I don't know if it was I think the personal training in the room is as legal as in person, like me as a trainer or you as a trainer going to somebody's house, I'd imagine, or I'd like to imagine, but we're
I
past
would
that
like to
now.
imagine that. Right. Exactly. So,
We're legit now.
so, so to backtrack a little bit, when you say that you think online training's overinflated, how do you mean?
I think, I mean, I guess we have to phase this in two avenues, right? Pre-COVID and intra-COVID.
Okay.
Pre-COVID, there was this big push for people like online training. I'm gonna make all my money online training. People were literally leaving gyms to go online training. And someone like you or I, like you are my first online coach. Tim wrote me a program. It turns out
You're my first online client.
So perfect. But there's this big thing where you and I are fortunate enough that we teach courses and have a little bit of a wider spread amongst trainers, so that it's easier for somebody in that position to draw an audience. And by audience, I mean 1 to 2 to 3 people outside of the gym. For most people back then, you leave the gym and then maybe you have like 2 friends and maybe a couple of members follow you. Like, I think the way that Instagram and Facebook would lead it on, you would think that everybody was just booming. Right. With internet, like distance coaching, or we called it online coaching, whatever you wanted to do, where we're providing a program, not a Zoom thing, but like a program, you follow the links and all that stuff. I think people thought that was way easier to build a following on than it is, because quite frankly, how do you separate yourself other than your personality? And that takes a lot of time. So that aspect, I think that was inflated. So when I would teach courses and the idea of online coaching would come up, I'd be like, yes, this is very much a thing. Like, I could pay my apartment rent online coaching alone. But at a certain point, it's a ton of work. It's not anywhere near as fun. It's not anywhere near as rewarding distance coaching. It is rewarding, but like everything has to be put on a hierarchy of what's the best way to coach somebody and be coached, broad stroke, and what's the best job we can do based on the opportunity we have, right? Does that make sense at all? Mm-hmm. Like one-on-one, in my opinion, is always you're gonna have the best level of coaching detail. Like, the coach is on you, the coach is programming you. That's the most coaching, but it's also the most expensive. So drawback, small group, you're gonna have less attention, but it's cheaper, right? So it's like the best of these things all step down. Then intra-COVID, one of the things that really I still struggle with in the fitness industry, but I saw a lot of people suddenly out of work giving away more free stuff than I have ever seen in my life, thinking somehow it was going to lead to big gain. And I think a lot of people struggled, and it didn't lead to a lot of work. And I don't think it built the name, because mostly coaches are seeing other coaches post. The members that are seeing us already see us. They're already aware of what we're up to. And if you don't have that coach to coach spread, I think in social media in general, we try to impress each other more than we realize, as opposed to like we think we're getting clients, but we're actually impressing each other or inadvertently doing so. So we gave away a lot. And now we're in that weird mix of a lot of people are still shooting videos from folks. If you're doing this, I'm not being judgmental, but like, we're still seeing, I'm building my business from my living room or my bedroom, right? Super punk rock, super DIY. I totally get it. That's how the Speakeasy started, just in a physical spot. But how do you separate yourself? And now in the online world, what I think is problematic, but wonderful and problematic in intra-pandemic land, because it feels like we're never getting out of it, which will lead to a theory I had about Dr. Strange later, is the reality is if COVID's not a concern or it's low and we're vaccinated, you should be training. And like your coach is accessible in person, you should be in person. Right? Like, if we remove a safety concern, you should be in person. People need to be around in person, whether it's small group, a fitness class. Like, humans are meant to be around each other. COVID throws a wrench in it, and we have to ride those waves. So like right now we have masks at the Speakeasy. I don't know how it is in North Carolina. Omicron, coming straight out of Cybertron, Omicron is running rampant right now in New York. Now, mind you, everybody I know, and I know a lot of people that have it right now, they have mild cold symptoms because they're all been vaccinated and boosted and they're all relatively fine. The frustration is holiday plans, right? It's the quarantine right now, which is adding the stress levels of New York City. So on the outward perception, I don't know if this is hitting everywhere around the states right now, but in New York, Omicron is running wild. But people aren't afraid of it so much as like, hey, I'm going to end up on a ventilator. at least in my world, it's very much so like I need to go see my folks or my grandparents, or I have to hop on a flight that needs a test. So everyone's being extra cautious right now. So we're going Zoom's here. Like if you're not comfortable, or someone in your family, like we never got rid of Zoom. We have Zoom at the same time. It runs just like our podcast right now. And I think a lot of coaches are trying to hold on to that pandemic online boom where like, I don't need a space anymore. I could just do this. But I think there's a really limited palette for growth within that. Like it's hard to build out. It's even harder now in a digital environment to really get your name out there when there's so many people talking about mindset and talking about kettlebell swings and talking about get-ups and whatever you might be pushing. It's really hard. And I think people need a physical space now when they're feeling safe enough to do it. I don't know if that makes any sense, but
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
humans are meant to be around people. And we have had 3 active members, COVID positive members come into this place in the whole 2 years-ish since this started. We've had 0 spread in here. We have all the precautions in place and we ride them as things rise. My members don't argue, or, they actually support all the decisions we make, or they make suggestions. And when it's time for somebody to feel uncomfortable, boom, Zoom. As opposed to just saying, hey, you should stay on Zoom the whole time because this is the best, most convenient. It's probably from a mental health perspective, unless there's a severe fear or health risk, not the best thing for an individual. So that's like pre-COVID online world, and now intra-COVID online world. I think a lot of people are trying to sell something that people actually don't need as much as we want to still think they need, because there is access to studios and stuff. And I'm not just saying that as an owner. We could have closed and been even more profitable had I just gone back to the living room and done remote and then refigured things out. But I knew long-term that when COVID dies down or becomes manageable or wherever we're at right now, I knew that people were going to need a space to be together and feel comfortable and move and celebrate and laugh and all that stuff.
Speaking of laughing, and speaking of you being my very first online client, you were also the first person I was ever kidnapped with. And that was funny.
Listening audience, like he's not really exaggerating by that. I mean, we're not going to name names, right? So we're not going to name names, but Tim and I, can we even say, like, I won't say where, but I will say this was
someplace in America.
Someplace in America. We'll say Northeast. But Tim and I I was assisting. It was like my second or third assisting gig. And assisting wasn't as structured back then. So you basically threw me into the fire to, like, we were co-teaching, which was awesome. And I'm grateful for. But we were each staying at somebody's house, and we had gone out for dinner. And on the way out, one of the people just grabbed the person that I was staying with, just grabbed him and was like, you're going to come stay with us now. And the other person that Tim was originally staying with was like, what the hell is happening? And then we got back to the house, and I was basically like put in the basement to like be alone while the other person just basically grilled Tim for like whatever he could juice out of you in terms of certs and finances and business and whatever. It was the weirdest. I remember like texting Kim like, Tim's been kidnapped, and I might as well not be here right now.
I will never forget when we were walking in the parking lot when that happened. You looked at me and said, hey, what just happened? Did this just get weird? And the answer was yes. Yes, it did.
I mean, look, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, not naming names or anything other than the information. It was on the Northeast. But unfortunately, like, here's the thing: when the weirdness travels home, right? That was probably this most dysfunctional staff of a gym or a fitness studio I've ever been in. And it made, when we realized that at the end of the course and after some follow-up conversations, it is not as surprising that you got kidnapped.
We've had other adventures, but that one's one that really, really sticks out.
Yeah.
Then another one that I was thinking about, which was hilarious, was you were also we were teaching a workshop somewhere on the Northeast as well, and the workshop started it's supposed to start, I guess, at 9 a.m, and it was 9:05 and no one was there.
and you looked at me and said, "What's going on? Are you punking me right now?" And then a few minutes later, like a busload of people arrived at the exact same time, and they were all late.
Wait, was that me? I don't remember this one.
Yes, it was you. It was at Tristan's place.
No, I remember. Happy belated, Tristan.
Tristan's birthday.
That was the first time I assisted.
Yes.
That's actually, and I that was the time, and I use this story to this day when I teach OS about that young woman Victoria, who Marjorie brought in, who had this severely injured leg that Marjorie brought her to work with you, and you're like, Steve, what would you do? I was like, I don't know, poop myself and try to hide it. I don't know, but it worked out. I still use that story to this day.
Hey, so while you've been talking, I've noticed this this tattoo on the palm side of your hand, right hand. Yes. What does Die Mighty mean? That's your Die Mighty tattoo. Right?
That is my Die Mighty, the coffin sword. So I had been playing around with like something like trying to find what would be like kind of my mission statement to some degree. And there was all this live strong stuff. And I think at the time I was saying die strong, but it was actually happened at North Carolina at OSI. I think I either I don't think I was presenting, but I think Jeff Newpert at the time had asked me a question or something. And I said something about like live long, be strong, and die mighty. And you all started repeating die mighty. Like it kind of caught on. And I came back and I was training somebody, my friend Jack, at my apartment. And I used to have this dry erase board, which is here now. And it just came to my head, like, I will die mighty. And it's sort of like, I reached out to my friend, Rich Carpenter, and I was like, he was an artist as well as an amazing coach. And I was like, Rich, this is what I'm thinking. And I don't know if anybody, or if you have ever seen the Lone Wolf and Cub movies. Shogun Assassin, if you've ever watched Kill Bill 2, and it's also in the Wu-Tang Clan. Lone Wolf and Cub is this 6 or 7 movie Japanese samurai movies, totally blood-soaked things. But like, long story short, the emperor's executioner, his second. So someone commits seppuku. This is the person that puts them out of their misery and chops their head off, right? Ogami Ito. And the ninja clan kills his whole family except for his young baby son. And he puts a sword out in front of his son. He puts a ball out in front of his son. And he basically leaves it for his son, that if his son chooses the ball, he's actually going to kill his son so that his son doesn't go down this path to hell that he's about to go on for revenge. But the son chooses the sword. And Die Mighty for me, as we all know, that coffin awaits. It's just how much are we going to fight against it? And when I got into training, it was mostly in my mid-late 30s. I'd already seen so many of my friends sort of just accepting this idea of falling apart as we get older. And that's where the Die Mighty thing really comes from, like defeating your expectations. Like, yeah, we get banged up, but so much of that stuff is self-limiting. And I think you're a perfect example, not just saying this on your show, of how if you put your mind to it, you could really surprise yourself and keep surprising yourself, as opposed to just sort of accepting this false perception of decay. And that's where live long, be strong, and die mighty. I'll tell people, like, I don't want you to, my goal is that when you're 90 at Disney, preferably maskless at this point at 90, yes, that you don't need a scooter to go around the park with your great grandkids, that you're mobile. By the way, if you've ever been to a nursing home, the person that's the most mobile gets the most action. So you want to be the most mobile person, even if you end up in a nursing home.
Right on. So, so you said you got into training in your mid to late 30s. Is that right?
Yeah.
How young are you now?
I'm 49 years young. And so I think I started working out about 14 years ago. What am I saying? 14 years ago. And I started getting into training seriously, like found kettlebells and then the sandbags and then original strength in 2010.
All right. So, in 2010, and right now, so you're really kind of, I don't know, you are an outlier, because like you're a master of all trades and a jack of none. Like you are you're a master kettlebell instructor,
Former.
master OS instructor. Well, sure.
Currently.
Sandbags instructor, clubs, and all things swinging instructor. And what am I leaving out? Or am I leaving out anything?
No, I mean, I was involved with Strength Faction for a while. Things got a little too hectic with the gym and some stuff at home with my kids. They needed more help. So I backed out of some programs that I felt like I couldn't support them the way they needed. All love, nothing great, nothing bad, I should say, all good. The kettlebell world, you and I have both dealt with this. There's a level of dogma within it and elitism within it where I love the system. I don't think it's a be all end all. I love kettlebell training, but I really just hated the attitude. And I was very fortunate and grateful for the RKC to allow me to teach my courses the way that I taught them. But even after teaching certifications for 7 years, 8 years, I would still get people coming up to me at like an event and being like, "Oh, I'm a strong first person." I'm like, "Oh, I'm a human. You know, I like comic books. How about, is there something else we can like define ourselves by?" So I sort of, during the pandemic, there were things that I didn't love how we're handled on either side of the fence. And I just felt like this is the way I want to, I'm going to teach kettlebells in my own way, not as a cert. You could choose whatever side you want to pitch your flag on, but I'll help you get there. Right. And totally non-dogmatic and really just focusing on teaching. So Die Mighty Method is actually a 6-week online in-person hybrid course that I created. And then Tina Morin, who's hosted a number of OS courses, owner of MSC Strength and Conditioning outside of Boston, she's partnered up with me now. So, we get to teach kettlebells our way. We get to talk about original strength. We get to talk about DVRT to some degree and having a more like how to actually help people in a rounded thing as opposed to like these 3 to 6 exercises are the be all end all. But it is really focused on teaching and working with each other and coaching as opposed to passing a snatch test or a technique test.
Awesome.
But yeah, that's it.
That's it.
In terms of all the titles, I was fancier. I would say right now, like, I own a gym. I'm the founder of Die Mighty Method. I'm an OS master instructor and a DVRT master instructor and friend of the world.
Friend of the world. Yes. By the way, you told me when we spoke last week that you were having your more mature physical. How did that go?
It was horrible. My health is okay. I just had a really horrible doctor experience. Like really horrible. Like it's funny. I almost wish you didn't bring it up, but I guess it's a good story.
Now I'm so curious.
So look, I opened up the gym in 2019 and on a wing and a prayer. Like we have for anybody that's interested, Speakeasy of Strength is a really small personal training, small group, appointment only spot in Gowanus, Brooklyn, New York. And it was very last minute. I had no money. I had no savings. I have no loan. Like I was just like, I think I could pull this off for 3 months. I borrowed a very little bit of money from my folks, went into the credit card a little bit, and we were up and running. So the stress of just creating this panic attack of like, okay, this is like me chasing the dream. This is it now. Physical space, or maybe I'm no longer a trainer after this. And then we started to grow and we started meeting some really awesome people. And my members from the original Speakeasy in the living room came. I had rented out space at a dance studio across the street for about a month and a half. But I think we had, like, including personal training, 16 members when I opened the spot. And for anybody maybe looking at the video and you see how small the studio is, the gross thing about living in Brooklyn is my rent is probably not far off from Tim's beautiful, huge studio in Fuquay Arena, or pretty much any place else out of New York City. Like you can go out on Long Island and get a great, like it's kind of crazy. So and then pandemic land hit and I'm like, look, I'm not going to a doctor's office unless I need to. Now, I found out that I had Graves' disease about a year and a half. It's a thyroid condition, autoimmune thing, about a year and a half before we opened here. Danny has it as well. She was super helpful getting me through it in the beginning when it was scary. And I finally was like, all right, I'm vaccinated. Let's go get my blood work. Let's start checking that everything's out, right? And my blood work came back great. And my thyroid is completely leveled out, like it's in good order. And they're like, your risk of a heart attack is like, you're fine. Like, like a 1% risk in 10 years. But then lately, in the last 6 or 7 months, a lot of peers of ours have been like, including my mom, coming to, getting diagnosed with cancers of various sorts of cancers. I know a bunch of people that have gotten hernias in their late 30s to like late 40s. And I'm just, let me have all of this stuff checked out. It's been a while. So I go to a practice that has completely overhauled their stuff during the shutdown, new name and everything. And I'm put in this like little room where literally when I'm on the exam table, my head's hitting the wall, my feet are hitting the wall.
Wow.
And it's freezing. And they come in, they do my blood pressure, like, oh, it's high. I'm like, all right, shit. Maybe I'm nervous. I'll try not to curse. I just caught myself. And then the doctor comes in and I'm like, hi, how you doing? And he's like, he asked me about my thyroid. I'm like, yep, it's under control. I had been diminishing the medicine that I was on, blah, blah. And he didn't want to believe that my endocrinologist had done a good job for some reason. And then I tried to express to him, like, look, cancer is a big thing. I would like to be, make sure like cancer's a thing and a hernia thing. And I mentioned a couple of things, and all he would harp on is my blood pressure. And it was just like one of these things where I've never felt not heard. And they took my blood pressure 2 more times, and the variance within an 8-minute window was so high. Like, plus it's like, you're literally stressing me out here, but it had always gone down since the start. So part of me is like, I don't even know if this thing is calibrated. Right. So look, I don't want to be vulgar here, but like, I haven't been in a physical in 2 years, 2019. So I was expecting, the finger up the bum. I was expecting the cough test. They did take all my blood work, and I was like, hey, can you just check my testosterone level? I'm a trainer. I just, I'm hitting this age. I just want to know if all my levels are good. And he's like, no, we're not going to bother. It's low. He just told me flat out it's low. I'm like, how do you know that? Because I just had my endocrinologist was like, you're a rock star. Because I'm like, I'm waiting on the sidelines, waiting for some Joe Rogan, testosterone replacement stuff. So, I'm waiting for that. And it was just obnoxious. And I left being like, great, I'm going to have a heart attack. And I don't know any more where I stood than I began with in terms of whether or not I'm at risk for a hernia or potentially have something or this. Because my view of fitness is I don't really care how lean you are or how heavy you are. Like, there's very sick, thin people, and there's very healthy, heavy people. And there's a world in between that. But if your blood work is fine and your organs and stuff are working well, right? Like, that's a good indicator that wherever stasis you're in is not detrimental and maybe beneficial to your health. Right. That's another myth of fitness too. There's a lot of people with shredded abs on the Instagram that have severe eating disorders and things and neurosis around it. Right. So we can't lose sight of that either. But I'm like, I just went in and I'm like, I told you 2 things and you completely didn't do anything about it. So I sat and I stewed on it for 2 days and I called them back and I'm seeing a new doctor. So it was not great.
I was wondering if you would just go to another doctor and try again.
I'm going to another doctor in the practice because I don't think my insurance will pay for like a second full up physical at another thing.
Right.
But I called and I complained. It was just really weird. By the way, as a gym owner, I have my own blood pressure machine. It's not a professional level like theirs. My blood pressure has been fine, slightly high, but within a normal range ever since then. And I've just been taking pictures that if I ever hear from this guy, I'm just going to send him like all this hate blood pressure pics. Is that even a thing?
It could be.
I got to learn to forgive on that one. But yeah, it was horrible. Thanks for bringing it up.
Sounds like you were also sabotaged by white coat fever. So that could have been
man. So I feel like that was like really boring for the listeners.
Oh, actually, and maybe the listeners were bored, but I was very intrigued. So thank you.
Get a physical, and it's not just because I wanted to finger up my bum or to cough. You know what I'm saying?
No, I get. So, which leads me to my next question, Marvel.
Moving off of fitness already. When is this going to air? Because I feel like, do we have to throw a spoiler caution out?
I think like if in 2 or 3 weeks from now, if people haven't seen the Marvel movies that are out, they just didn't want to see them. You know what I mean?
All right. Look, we saw Spider-Man Far From Home. I had high expectations. Knew most of the rumors and what was confirmed and what was like they were still trying to pretend wasn't happening. But even with knowing so much, the execution of that film is so absolutely perfect and heart-wrenching and validating and sentimental and still exciting. It's wonderful. I'll say this as a thing. Like I might not have teared up as much as you, but there was a moment where like I find myself in movies like no, like I'll talk now without even realizing I'm about to do it. Ghostbusters Afterlife, by the way, same thing. There was moments where I'm like, I literally out loud was like, I can't, because it was like too special. But there was a moment, a big reveal, right? Like the Peters, right? And I turn and my kids are mouth open, tearing, but more importantly, they are not hugging each other. They are vice grip clutching each other, like which my kids have never done in their entire life. They're doing that in this movie because they have all seen since, you know, Sadie was 4 and Ben was 2, the original Tobey Maguire films. They got to go to the theater for the Amazing SpiderMans, or at least the second one. And then of course they've gone to the theater for all of Tom Holland stuff, starting with Civil War. It was just like, it's so much bigger now because it's combining these stories, but you know, at our age, not that we're super old or anything, but it's also like validating a big chunk of our youth. And it could have been done so poorly. And I'll be honest, I've got concerns about Venom coming into this mix. But the way this movie, at least on its own, it was just perfect. And then you and I have had these text exchanges as well, that I just can't really believe we live in a time where these things are happening. For everyone, and there's some trainer friends that are really harsh on these movies that get overly critical. Back in the day, we didn't have anything. Really,
Right.
like Tim Burton's Batman and Richard Donner's Superman were really kind of it. Then you had like The Crow. Blade 1 and 2 don't get the credit they deserve, especially Blade 1 and 2. Blade 3 is a mess. But most of those movies were messes, right? Daredevil was like, okay. Elektra was horrible. Both Ghost Riders were horrible. Like there was just so much bad. And then what Marvel's doing on a consistent level, like even their worst movie, is still pretty great compared to what we grew up with, you know?
Yeah.
And when you go throw in now how like everything's integrated with Disney, the Disney Plus shows, and spoiler alert, now integrated with the Netflix shows, it's remarkable. And then get ourselves out of Spider-Man. In 4 days, we have The Matrix available on television.
Yep.
Like it's insane. And then 2 days after that, Book of Boba Fett. Like,
so yeah, for a sci-fi comic lover or hero lover, like there's never been a better time for movies than right now.
There's never been, well, the only thing I'll say, there's never been a time to like celebrate superheroes. There's almost never been a worse time to be a comic book reader though, because the shops are still dying, which is like my biggest heartbreak. Like New York Comic Con sells out every year, and yet no one goes to the local comic shop to actually pick up their books anymore. I wish people had more of that experience, but it is nice to know now. Like, I don't know how it was by you, but like, you know, comic books weren't cool when I was a kid. And to see them be validated, these things that like, I would imagine with all the Superman stuff behind you and all the nerdy stuff that I have here, you know, we defined ourselves in aspects of our entire personalities over these stories. It wasn't just like, that's a good story. It was like, we emotionally connect with how I'm developing as a human being to the story. And it's such a big scale now that I feel like it's harder to feel alone. Like you can go to if you had nothing to say at a party now, you could at least say, hey, did you see the new SpiderMan movie? They might say no, but there's a good chance they'll say yes.
No, well, okay, so back to the Spider-Man movie. That was like, yeah, I almost cried about 3, maybe 4 times. It was such an amazing, well done movie on so many different levels. And it does touch you personally on so many different levels because of the struggles and the things they were dealing with, where, I mean, it's our life, it's a life journey for all of us.
2001 or 2003, I think, was the Toby movie. I mean, that's a
Yes.
long time.
And I loved it. Like I remember seeing it, seeing it in the theater.
Yep.
And let me ask you this, because this might be one of those weird me things, but I think it was very much on purpose. There's a scene at the end where they keep going back and forth between Toby's amazing, loving, caring eyes and then Tom Holland's rage, anger-filled eyes. And I thought that scene and those shots were just so powerful. Like, it's all I can think about was like Toby's eyes, like the way they used that shot was amazing.
It was really great because I realized you haven't seen Tobey Maguire. I haven't seen him in much lately, and he's an amazing actor. Like, if you go outside of the Spider-Man movies, he's been in some amazing things. And
Freaking
then
Seabiscuit.
Yeah. And then I got to tell you, if Andrew Garfield, if you really want to, I liked him as Peter Parker. The second movie falls into that category of horrible, like the Electro. I'm glad how they handled Electro in this movie.
Right.
Because that was another junker. Like, they fall into that Batman range, right? Like the last two Batman movies, like the Joel Schumacher goofball ones. Andrew Garfield on a Netflix movie called Tick, Tick, Boom. It's a musical theater movie, basically, but it's about the writer, creator of Rent, the Broadway show Rent. Andrew Garfield deserves an Academy Award for that. Like, I can't stress enough, and I'm not a big musical theater person at all. I started watching part of it with Sadie. He is unbelievable in it. So to get to see that and then see him come back, and not just as like, oh, they dug up my old role, but like to actually have like the biggest role talent wise in his life, if not the most popular, and that, it was really cool. And I don't know how you felt about it, but I actually think he gets the best moment in the movie.
Dude, that's the one that almost made me cry. Like,
yeah,
because
I'm getting actually like the hair is standing up on my arms thinking about that. He actually has the best moment in that movie.
And that was the part where I told you it could steal your breath. Like,
yeah,
that one part right there just make you just not breathe at all.
And the way they were able to like retcon all the main bad guys, it was just it was amazing. Like, it really was. And like, again, Jamie Foxx, who's an incredible actor, getting to kind of correct all the mistakes of what Electro was, and amazing too. And even the Lizard, to some degree, having more room to shine a little bit. And unfortunately, Sandman, in my opinion, in that Spidey 3, the travesty that Spidey 3 is, because it's just worse every time. We rewatched it. Flint Marko is the one likable character in that movie. If they just made it a Sandman movie and got rid of the Venom suit, it probably would have been a really good movie. So it was nice to hear, just even though he doesn't have a huge arc in it, I really liked how he was handled within that. And the fact that it was all the same actors was awesome.
No, I will watch that movie again and again. And after Endgame, I was like, there'll never be anything close to that. But Marvel proved me wrong, and I'm very glad that they did.
Yeah, it was really great too. Like, it was nice to see Black Widow and Eternals in a theater, after the big gap. But not only, I think, that the gaps out, and Shang-Chi as well, but I wasn't as invested. Like, I knew I was excited to see them, but not as invested. And then you realize, like, you've heard these rumors for years now about what was going to happen in the Spider-Man movie. But as the date approached, and it was like, I'm going to stop going on social media because I don't want any direct spoilers. And when we sat down with the kids, and you're like, no, this is like a civil war. This is like a big one. Whereas I feel like a lot of them now, and it's part of my problem with like a little bit with Shang-Chi, which I really love, but with Eternals, is like everything they try to make grand scale, but if there's not an emotional attachment to it, it's not the same. Like, if they had made Infinity War the way they rushed Justice League, like third movie in, you'd be like, you don't care about anybody. And I feel to some degree that happens on some of the scaling of some of the Marvel movies. But this one, you have the most amount of care, because it's like you could pick your favorite Spider person.
Yeah, it's
unbelievable.
Spider-Man.
And they were great together. They were totally great together. When Garfield's like, when they're like, I'm Spider-Man 1, Spider-Man 2, Spider-Man 3, he's like, yeah, 3. Like, he just knew. He knew he was the least favorite of them.
No, it was wonderful. And speaking of Eternals, I've seen it once, and that'll be probably all I ever see it.
I enjoyed it. I fall in the minority of people that seem to have enjoyed it. Unanimously, it seems to get hate. I went into that with the least amount of knowledge of the books, but I'm also always like the idea of Jack Kirby's Celestials. Like I don't know their names or even all the powers, but just that idea of these giant race of space aliens controlling worlds is Brad. I thought the lead was pretty good, and then the lead sort of bad guy. I'm forgetting all their names at this point, by the way, which is in itself probably shows you how much I loved it.
There's a Superman wannabe.
Yeah, but he reminded me of the Homelander from The Boys. I kept thinking like he's a little bit like Homelander from The Boys. But there were certain characters that I liked, and I dug it, and we'll see where it goes. The big reveal at the end, sometimes those translations from comic book to human, I'm like, I kind of think I know who that is. And then I go back and I Google the character. I'm like, oh, I know who that is. So we'll see. I feel like there's so many big threads out there now in the Marvel universe that I don't know how they tie up, because we know Doc Strange is multiverse, which looks amazing. And again, how crazy is it that we're watching a Spider-Man movie that has Tobey Maguire and Sam Raimi, Spider-Man and bad guys in it, and then we're watching the end thing, which is a Sam Raimi film. Like he's back. I think that's going to be amazing. And so we have the multiverse, but then we still have this scroll thing happening, right? That's still floating around. And I guess that's going to be a TV show, Secret Invasion. We still have the Guardians floating around with Thor. There's just a lot of threads. So it's going to be interesting to see where this even goes and where it delivers. Because is it all going to be in a movie now, or are some of these big things going to happen on TV? I don't know.
It's a good time to I enjoy the TV runs that they're doing.
Hawkeye's great. And it gets better every episode.
Yes, they're such good storytellers that build on it, and they hook you, and they're so good at doing that, which I love it.
Even Wanda, the first one, the kids and I hated the first 2 episodes. I know people are like, we need to learn to be patient and all that stuff. But if you're under 40, you probably didn't have access to watching those black and white TV shows that they were even riffing on, that were on regular syndicated TV when I grew up, at least, right? Like I would watch the Three Stooges and Dick Van Dyke and Mary Tyler Moore. It sounds like I had no life. Didn't have much of one, but I knew what they were referencing, whereas my kids had no idea. Like, what am I watching? And they fed you so little. And the jokes were so intentionally corny, but the first 2 episodes are painful. But then as soon as they cross that line into the third one, you're like, oh, here we go.
And there you went.
And then it went, and then it got great. And, I didn't think Falcon and Winter Soldier was a great show, but their relationship, the chemistry they have is amazing. I didn't love how they handled the Flag Smasher thing. I loved how they handled him with Captain America and Sentinel. I thought that brought me to tears at the end. What was the other one? Was there one other one, or was that it so far? What If was great. And his canon. We can admit that now after the Doctor Strange thing.
Oh, Loki's the what else?
Oh, Loki was another great one. I mean, we had an alligator Loki. That's the other thing that I love about Marvel. Like, they're not afraid to show how ridiculous this stuff is, but they pull it off.
They pull it off very well.
Yeah, I'm excited. I don't even know what is the next one. I guess it's Doctor Strange is the next one, or is it Guardians?
I think it's Doctor Strange. I think
so too.
And it just could be the Book of Boba Fett, even though it's completely different. Looking forward to that.
Book of Boba Fett's going to be great. And then the big one that Sadie and I are waiting for is the Ahsoka series when that comes out, which I don't even know if it's 2022, but it sounds like that's going to be the search for Ezra Alive, which is unbelievable. They're assembling basically the Star Wars Rebels cast in live action.
I thought you were going to tell me you were so excited about Cobra Kai 4 coming out, but
dude, I love that show. But let's be honest, okay? Here's the problem with Cobra Kai. It's a great show. How are they not all arrested and in jail? Like, those kids are hella violent. Like, it's like, all right, great choreography. Kids literally murdering each other. basically, but somehow they get up. I mean, the one kid got paralyzed, but it is the most violent show where it almost pulls you out of like, what level of reality should this really be in? Because this would just not happen, right? Like, it's so out there, but it's great. And Johnny, what's the actor's name? He's amazing in that.
Oh, he is good. I like
Oh,
Johnny.
so good. And when Ed Asner, rest in peace, was his dad in the first season, perfect.
It was. I've never wanted to punch Daniel LaRusso so bad though. It's just crazy.
Ralph
I'm not a
Macchio,
violent person.
Ralph Macchio was like a Long Islander, and his cousin, it was a big thing. His cousin went to my high school. So everybody's like, that's Ralph Macchio's cousin.
You're like, no, that's my cousin Benny.
What is the thing that he says? What is this? A ute or something like that? He's eating something. He's like, what is this? I'm spacing out on it. I haven't seen that movie in a while. But it starred, guess who co-starred in that movie? May Parker.
Yes, Marissa Tomei.
It all comes back.
It all comes back together.
It all comes
right?
back.
So for 2022, what are you looking for? What are you looking forward to?
Not having to deal with the pandemic on the same level that we have been, which brings me to the Doctor Strange thing. You want me to tell you that I just realized today?
Go for it.
So basically, COVID is Doctor Strange and we're all Dormammu, because every time we think we're cool and over with it, it just comes back like it did before.
He keeps rewinding in. Here we go again.
Because like, remember how at the end of 2020, we were all like, oh, I can't wait to have this year over. Now, mind you, 2021 was pretty rad, comparatively speaking. But my gosh, like at least in New York City, again, I don't know what it's like by you, but the level that the numbers and the testing sites and everything are blowing up here. And folks, I'm laughing about it only because, like, seriously, it's mostly people getting mild colds. It's amongst the vaccinated here. We'll define that. But it's kind of crazy to be like, here we are, holiday surge, which we knew was going to happen to some degree. So like we are now, though, I think Dormammu trying to stop this, and COVID is just Doctor Strange coming back like, nope. But I would like that. I put a lot of work in the last 2 months into the business to try to actually get better as a business person. I realized that I've been running this place almost like a triage as opposed to a proper hospital, meaning like everything's been like sort of like panic mode, like a, on the fly structure, as opposed to like really having a solid foundation. So I could start to pull myself away out of this a little bit more next year, to spend more time with the family and sort of appreciate it all a little more. I've got an amazing team in place. I've spent countless hours managing all the space, all the nerdy stuff we have up on the walls. It's a running joke among some of the members when they come in every week, like, what's new? And it might be like a skateboard, it might be a helmet, or it might be like our rower or something. So just having that more in line. I don't know what it's like to have like a normal year of business, because we've been dealing with this, and I don't think it's going away per se. But I think we have a business model now that can expand and contract. So it's more of like, yeah, it'll affect our finances to some degree, but it won't destroy us. But we at least have all these things that we can adjust to without it being as like devastating as it was the first time.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's it. Want to spend more time. I want to teach again more. I want to come out to North Carolina and do an OS Pro. We still have a couple of things. We have a couple of missions to do in Taiwan and in Tokyo. We have to bring OS Pro to Tokyo. We have to do that sort of, I don't know how we were going to phrase it, as a donation course or benefit course for the woman to help with the survivors of the Taiwan pool fire. That I told you about while we were out there at Dickie Hung's Place Believe training. Like I haven't forgot about that. It's been a bummer that we haven't been able to go. I look forward to traveling and meeting people, but I'm not gonna rush it.
Sounds very sci-fi right now.
Oh man, I know, right? I don't know, just trying to stress less, take care of myself a little bit better.
Get your next new mature physical.
That's Monday.
I got a feeling you're okay. At least that's what I'm gonna hold on to?
I feel pretty good. I mean, under stress, it's like, it's one of those things when like, hey, have you been under a lot of stress? Who has not been under a lot of stress?
These are the stressful times.
The crazy thing this year, in 2022, I turned 50, which is sort of shocking and amazing. Like, I don't feel 50 at all. I don't think I look 50. I have tickets to literally see Iron Maiden live on my 50th birthday. I can't think of a better way to actually celebrate that. If anyone knows Bruce Dickinson, to tell him that I'll be there so that he can give me a shout out, it would be much appreciated. But yeah, it's just but it's also like, wow, like life is a pretty amazing, and you have a lot of time to do stuff, take advantage of it. And but yeah, 50 is sort of weird when you're hitting it as a landmark. When you're like, wow, I still feel like a lot like a high schooler almost.
Well, that's because you embody what you're preaching. You're dying mighty. You're living the dying mighty way. I'm
trying. I mean, this place is literally like my head exploded on the walls here. It keeps me in check, keeps me motivated. The viewers can't see it all, but I'm surrounded by He-Man, Godzilla, and Star Wars helmets and G.I. Joe helmets to the left and the right of me. Yeah, things are good, man. And like, I'm just, I guess even with all the negativity and stuff that's happening, I'm still just incredibly grateful that, my family has been safe. My members have been safe, that I even can say that I have members, that our doors were still open, that we're still doing better than we were pre-COVID, that there's room for growth. And I think I'm getting better at this, and our team is really formulating really well. They're just awesome. I'm super grateful for that. And, grateful for you and Danny. It's just weird because you and I catch up mostly on podcasts. Yeah, that's been weird. I miss teaching courses a lot. We did the OS out in Boston, and we're doing DVRT here, but I look to get more stuff on the schedule. But it's hard because it's oddly enough, there's not even the same amount of spaces to move into right now in terms of hosting, because a lot of places closed. So easing into it. We're gonna do OS in New York. We're working on a date. I reached out to Danny about it. And then just I want to come out and do a pro, man. We got to bring the pro back together.
One day
we can make that happen.
Hopefully, yes. One day. That's the goal.
That's the goal. What are you looking forward to? Enough about me.
Well, no, I'm looking forward to moving forward. Period. I don't want to look back anymore. I just want to move forward.
Simple steps.
So I got a question for you. The year 2022 is here, pretty much. And so for the person, though, that wants to also step forward in a mighty way and maybe learn how to live so that they can die mighty, if someone wanted to take your Die Mighty course, could they do that? And how could they do that?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Tina and Maureen and I we had a biz dev meeting on it today. That's business development for those. That sounds slick when I said biz dev. Oh, it's horrible. We're going to launch one probably sometime in February or early March. February would be the year anniversary since the first time we've done it. We've done 3 rounds. Reach out to me directly. My email is fury, F-U-R-Y, at speakeasyofstrength.com, or you can send a message. My Instagram is Speakeasy of Strength BK. If that doesn't show up, look up Speakeasy of Strength NY. I might be updating it by the time you're reading this podcast, listening to this podcast, or watching it. But basically, it's really cool. It's 6 weeks. Every week we go into the big 6. And there's a written checklist. There's a big video breakdown. And then we have a group meeting where we have spots in person at the Speakeasy, in person at Tina's spot, but also on Zoom if you're not around. So there's an ability to really everybody interact with each other. And during the week leading up to that, everyone posts the videos of them demoing. So they are actually coaching and teaching each other based on the checklist and the demo and their experience. And then Tina and I can come in and say what what we see that was positive, what they might have been missing. So they have 6 weeks. Every week is a movement. So they have 6 weeks to not only learn the movements, but also see each week how one movement connects to the other, right? Like a kettlebell swing and a clean and a snatch are not that different at all. So they have 3 weeks to just work on that. And then it's the get up and then the squat and then the press. So like everything interconnects. And it's really something that I wish I had. I'm definitely my team members, like one of my newest coaches, Anna, who's just a rock star, had gone through it. My friend Tally Sessions, before he got on the show and had some stuff to deal with, had gone through it, and he was going to start training here. It's just really what I didn't realize was missing at certs. Because you know how it is. Tim and I met in person assisting at the second Strong First kettlebell cert ever. And when you're at a cert, the main thing everybody's worrying about is the snatch test, right? And then it's like, are they going to, then the second day, it's are they going to pass their technique test? And then the third thing is, what are these people going to think of me? As opposed to like, how much am I actually going to enjoy learning at these things? You know, how much is this going to help my members? It really becomes about the pass fail and how hard it's going to be. And this allows me to really just focus on people getting to know each other and network in a non-creepy way of network, because you're just getting to spend time with people, both on social media and off, you know, on via Zoom or in person. And that's how Tim and I met. And I think that's like a really missed connection, especially now, I would imagine, in COVID land, where people aren't meeting at certs the same way they used to or interacting the same way they used to. So it's a 6-week course. It's very low priced. I think full price is like $399 and our launch price is $349. So to have that level of access, quite frankly, of a former master RKC that has taught internationally, what's the weird title when you guys promoted me to master? You put it on the PR company did something like renowned international fitness educator.
That's you.
So to be able to, for like $350, spend 6 weeks and including 6 hours of actually like live time, it's a deal. And I wanted it to be that, because one of the things that I didn't love, and OS is very reasonably priced for people, so I don't put you guys in the categories. A lot of these bigger, pricier certs, I don't think took into credit how hard the fitness industry professionally was hit financially. It's not as easy to be like, yeah, I'll go spend $800 on a weekend, which also means I have to take off the weekend. And you know how it is with kids too. You want to value that, like, and you don't want it to be a weekend course, because you want to value that might be the time they're with their family, you know, as opposed to, like, I don't think enough organizations think about that, like the sacrifice that goes in versus just the payment, you know, versus delivering initials, you know, or continuing education credits. Like, I want them to be able to like really get a lot out of it. I want them to make friends. Pretty much all my greatest friends, you included, are all through fitness now, which is like a field I had no idea I would be a part of 11 and a half years ago. So yeah, that's how you would find, in the longest way possible, Time Mighty Method. I basically feel like I just took you through phase 1 of a Marvel thing to get to that answer. Email me and I'll set you up.
So now we have the foundation. We're good.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's it. So follow us on Instagram. Maybe it's like we have a pretty fun, nerdy Instagram.
Yes, you do. Very colorful. So, Coach Fury. It's the first time I don't usually call you Coach Fury.
No,
Steve.
Steve.
And it was great catching up. Thanks so much for being on the show.
Likewise, man. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Have a great weekend.